Oh, you're still awake. I really thought you'd have been asleep hours ago, but guess you got me. Oh, you want me to read you a bedtime story? I guess that makes logical sense to help you fall asleep. Um, sure. I think I've got the perfect thing right here. So, let's see. Maybe just something simple like a fairy tale tonight? Or a couple. All right. If you say so. We'll see how we can do. Who knows? If you fall asleep, though, you know I'm still gonna have to carry you back to bed. No, you're good on the couch there. Okay. Well, go ahead and get comfy. We'll start off with something that you probably know pretty well. Now, just to kind of forewarn, these aren't your super happy fairy tales. I mean, they're a little more, well, grim, in a word. But, alright, well, let's give it a go. This'll work. We'll start with this one. So we'll start with Rapunzel. Sound good to you? There once were a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length, the woman hoped that God was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it because it belonged to an enchantress named Dame Gothel, who had a great power and was dreaded by all the world. One day, the woman was standing by this window and looking down into the garden, when she saw a bed which was planted with the most beautiful rampion. That's also called Rapunzel. It's a cabbage. And it looked so fresh and green that she longed for it, and had the greatest desire to eat some. This desire increased every day, and as she knew that she would not get any of it, she quite pined away, and looked pale and miserable. Then her husband was alarmed and asked, "What ails you, dear wife?" She replied, "If I can't get some of the rampion which is in the garden behind our house, I shall die." The man who loved her, though, thought, "Sooner than let your wife die, bring her some of the rampion yourself. Let it cost you what it will." In the twilight of the evening, he clambered down over the wall into the garden of the enchantress, hastily clutched a handful of rampion, and took it to his wife. She had once made herself a salad of it and ate it with much delight. She, however, liked it so much, so very much. The next day she longed for it 3 times as much as before. If he was to have any rest, her husband must once more descend into the garden, in the gloom of everything. Therefore, he let himself down again. But when he had clambered down the wall, he was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How can you dare," said she with an angry look, "to descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? You shall suffer for it." "Ah," he answered, "let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your rampion from the window and felt such a longing for it that she would have died if she had not got some to eat." Then the enchantress allowed her anger to be softened, and said to him, "If the case be as you say, I will allow you to take away with you as much rampion as you will. Only I make one condition. You must give me the child with which your wife will bring into the world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother." The man in his terror consented to everything, and when the woman gave birth, the enchantress appeared at once, gave the child the name Rapunzel, and took it away with her. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child beneath the sun, and when she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower which lay in a forest and had neither stairs nor door. But quite at the top was a little window, When the enchantress wanted to go in, she placed herself beneath it and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Rapunzel had magnificent long hair, fine as spun gold, and when she heard the voice of the enchantress, she unfastened her braided tresses, wound them round one of the hooks of the window above, and then the hair fell 20 ells down, and the enchantress climbed up by it. After a year or two, it came to pass that the king's son rode through the forest and went by the tower. Then he heard a song, which was so charming that he stood still and listened. And this was Rapunzel, who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her and looked for the door of the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once, when he was thus standing behind a tree, he saw that an enchantress came there, and he heard how she cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. "If that is the ladder by which one mounts, I will at once try my fortune," said he. And the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Immediately the hair fell down, and the king's son climbed up. At first Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man such as her eyes had never yet beheld came to her. But the king's son began to talk to her quite like a friend, told her that his heart had been so stirred that he had let him have no rest, and he had been forced to see her. Then Rapunzel lost her fear, and when he asked her if she would take him for her husband, and she saw that he was young and handsome, she thought, "He will love me more than old Dame Gothel does." And she said yes, and laid her hand in his. She said, "I will willingly go away with you, but I do not know how to get down. Bring with you a skein of silk every time you come, and I will weave a ladder with it. And when that is ready, I will descend, and you will take me on your horse." They agreed that until that time, he should come to her every evening, for the old woman came by day. The enchantress remarked nothing of this until once Rapunzel said to her, "Tell me, Dame Gothel, how it happens that you are so much heavier for me to draw up than the young king's son. He is with me in hardly a minute." "Ah, you wicked child," cried the enchantress. "What did I hear you say? I thought I had separated you from all the world, and yet you have deceived me." In her anger, she clutched Rapunzel's beautiful tresses, wrapped them twice around her left hand, and seized a pair of scissors with the right, and snip, snap, they were cut off, and the lovely braids lay on the ground. And she was so pitiless that she took poor Rapunzel into a desert where she had to live in great grief and misery. On the same day that she cast out Rapunzel, the enchantress fastened the braids of her hair, which she had kept on, to the hook of the window, and in the evening, when the king's son came and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," she let the hair down. The king's son ascended, but he did not find his dearest Rapunzel above, but the enchantress, who gazed at him with wicked and venomous looks. "Aha!" she cried mockingly. "You would fetch your dearest, but the beautiful bird sits no longer singing in the nest. The cat has got it, and will scratch out your eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to you, and you will never see her more." The king's son was beside himself with pain, and in despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns into which he fell pierced his eyes. Then he wandered quite blind about the forest. He ate nothing but roots and berries, and did nothing but lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he roamed about in misery for some years, and at length came to the desert, where Rapunzel, with the twins to which she had given birth, a boy and a girl, lived in wretchedness. He heard a voice, and it seemed so familiar to him that he went towards it. And when he approached, Rapunzel knew him and embraced him and wept. 2 of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. He led her to his kingdom, where he was joyfully received, and they lived for a long time afterwards, happy and contented. Oh, another one. You are greedy tonight. Well, all right. We'll try one more. But then you have to go to bed. Deal? All right. So this one might be one you haven't heard of before. Well, maybe not as popular, but this will work. All right, this one's called the Bremen Town Musicians. Something a little more abstract. Might help you get to sleep. A certain man had a donkey, which had carried the sacks of corn to the mill tirelessly for many long years. But his strength was going, and he was growing more and more unfit for work. Then his master began to consider doing away with him. But the donkey, seeing that trouble was in the air, ran away and set out on the road to Bremen. There, he thought, I can surely join the town band. When he had walked some distance, he found a hound lying on the road, gasping like one who had run till he is tired. Why are you gasping so, you big fellow? Asked the donkey. Ah, replied the hound, as I am old and daily grow weaker, and no longer can hunt, my master wanted to kill me. So I took to flight, but now, how am I to earn my bread? I tell you what, said the donkey, I'm going to Bremen, and she should be a town musician there. Go with me, and engage yourself also as a musician. I will play the lute, and you shall beat the kettle drum. The hound agreed, and on they went. Before long they came to a cat sitting on the path, with a face like 3 rainy days. Now then, old Whiskers, what has gone askew with you? Asked the donkey. Who can be merry when his neck is in danger? Answered the cat. Because I am now getting old, and my teeth are worn to stumps, and I prefer to sit by the fire and spin, rather than hunt about after mice. My mistress wanted to drown me, so I ran away. But now good advice is scarce. Where am I to go? Go with us to Bremen. You understand night serenading? You can be a town musician. The cat thought well of it, and went with it. After this, the 3 fugitives came to the farmyard, where the rooster was sitting upon the gate, crowing with all his might. Your crow goes on and on, said the donkey. What is the matter? I have been foretelling fine weather, because it is the day on which Our Lady washes the Christ child's little shirts, and wants to dry them, said the rooster, but guests are coming for Sunday. So the housewife has no pity, and has told the cook that she intends to eat me in the soup tomorrow, and this evening I am to have my head cut off. Now I am crowing at full pitch while I can. Ah, but Redcomb, said the donkey, you had better come away with us. We are going to Bremen. You can find something better than death everywhere. You have a good voice, and if we make music together, it must have some quality. The rooster agreed to this plan, and all 4 went on together. They could not, however, reach the city of Bremen in one day, and in the evening they came to a forest where they met to pass the night. The donkey and the hound laid themselves down under a large tree, the cat settled itself in the branches, and the rooster flew high atop, where he was most safe. Before he went to sleep, he looked around on all 4 sides and thought he saw in the distance a little spark burning. So he called out to his companions that there must be a house not far off, for out there he saw a light. The donkey said, if so, we had better get up and go on, for the shelter here is bad. The hound thought of a few bones with some meat on them would do him some good too. So they made their way to the place where the light was, and soon saw it shine brighter and grow larger until they came to a well-lit robber's house. The donkey, as the largest, went to the window and looked in. What do you see, my gray horse? Asked the rooster. What do I see? Answered the donkey. A table covered with good things to eat and drink, robbers sitting at it enjoying themselves. That would be the sort of thing for us, said the rooster. Ah, yes. How I wish we were there, said the donkey. Then the animals took counsel together how they should manage to drive away the robbers, and at last they thought of a plan. The donkey was to place himself with his 4 feet upon the window ledge, the hound to jump on the donkey's back, the cat was to climb upon the dog, and lastly the rooster was to fly atop and perch upon the head of the cat. When this was done, At a given signal, they began to perform their music together. The donkey brayed, the hound barked, the cat mewed, and the rooster crowed. Then they burst through the window into the room so that the glass clattered. At this horrible din, the robbers sprang up, thinking that a ghost had come in, and fled in a great fright out into the forest. The four companions now sat down at the table, well content with what was left, and ate it as if they were going to fast for a month. As soon as the four minstrels had done as they had pleased, they put out the light, and each sought for himself a sleeping place according to his nature and to what suited him. The donkey laid himself down upon some straw in the yard, the hound behind the door, the cat upon the hearth near the warm ashes, and the rooster perched himself upon a beam of the roof. And being tired from their long walk, they soon went to sleep. When it was past midnight, and the robbers saw from afar that the light was no longer burning in their house, and all appeared quiet, the captain said, "We ought not to have let ourselves be frightened out of our wits," and ordered one of them to go and examine the house. The messenger, finding all still, went into the kitchen to light a candle, and taking the glistening fiery eyes of the cat for live coals, he held a match to them to light it. But the cat did not think it was funny, and flew in his face, spitting and scratching. He was dreadfully frightened, and ran to the back door, but the dog who lay there sprang up and bit his leg. And as he ran across the yard by the straw heap, the donkey gave him a smart kick with his hind foot. The rooster, too, had been awakened by the noise, and had become lively, and cried down from the beam. Then the robber ran back as fast as he could to his captain and said, "There is a horrible witch sitting in the house, who spat at me and scratched. She had such long claws and scratched my face, and by the door stands a man with a knife, who stabbed me in the leg. And in the yard there lies a black monster, who beat me with a wooden club, and above upon the roof sits the judge, who called out, 'Bring the rogue here to me.' So I got away as well as I could." As for this, the robbers did not trust themselves in the house again. But it suited the four musicians of Bremen so well that they did not care to leave it any more. And the mouth of the man who last told this story is still warm. Tuckered out already. Well, sleep well, little draft.